Hi guys, welcome back to the fifth episode of the EPL Showdown, where we'll be reviewing fixtures, debates, and probably fantasy football as well. Here we are joined with us today two special guests: Akio Fernandez, who's the president of Man City Supporters Club Goa, and Conrad Barreto, who's the president of Liverpool Supporters Club Goa, along with Vinamra Saroti, Jeet Shah, and me, Jaden Fernandez. Let's go. Let's get right into it. Conrad Barreto, though. From a Liverpool's point of view, Liverpool's title winning season. How would you describe Liverpool's title winning season this year?
I think it's nothing short of emphatic because given that we almost chased Man City down last season, losing the title by 1 point and coming back even stronger this season, I think it's been fantastic.
But do you think it was actually justified for Liverpool by just fielding going only for the Premier League and not going for other trophies?
I don't think anyone is justified in saying that we did not go for the other trophies. We went for every trophy
I
because
don't
do
think so.
I,
You're
I, but I do feel you let lose in terms of fielding good teams for FA Cup or for the Carabao Cup, which you actually should have
I
won Premier League, and like that would have made your season even sweeter.
not really. The League Cup we did not have a choice because the FA did not give us a different date for the fixture. We cannot play one game in England and the next game in Qatar because we had the Club World Championship. So we had no other choice other than to field a very young team, which in fact put in a very good performance. Even though they lost by a big margin, it doesn't reflect on how they played because they
Right.
played much better than what Villa did that day. Our
But
League
then,
Cup,
yeah,
we got a
yeah.
we got
I
a
think
tough
I,
fixture
I
versus
think I think
Chelsea.
it's the other way around. Chelsea was FA Cup, right? And the League Cup was the one where you had to.
Yeah, Chelsea was League Cup.
Yeah, Chelsea was FA Cup.
Yeah, and League Cup was against Villa.
Yeah.
all right. So,
So
do you
yeah,
actually think
against Chelsea
Liverpool
also,
will be able to do this again? This such a big march and winning the title
everyone was
again.
asking the same. Everyone was asking me the same question last season when we finished on 96 points. Will Liverpool be able to do this again? Everyone asked me the same question even when we lost the Champions League final against Real Madrid. Will Liverpool be able to do this again? And I
Yeah,
think
I
everyone
think
is
that shows that shows a sort of mentality, that the strong mentality that they possess right now under Klopp, that they don't it doesn't make them complacent.
definitely. I think he's instilled a very powerful winning mentality into this team, and yep, they're showing it on the field.
All
Conrad,
right.
so
Huh.
it's been 30 years since your last lifted the title. So you like see obviously you have won the Champions League before 2 times, but how do you personally feel as a fan that finally after 30 years you have lifted the Premier League title? What was going through your mind when the day you all won the Premier League title?
It I was overwhelmed to be honest because I've seen some crazy chases from Liverpool 2008, 2013, 14, and the last season was with Man City, and we've come that bit close to winning the Premier League. In fact, we are the ones that bottled it every time. We were right up there on course for winning it, and we are the ones that bottled it. And
Yeah.
that was always in the mind of every Liverpool fan this season as well. But we were right up there. The winning mentality stuck into us, and we just took off this season.
Last
All
question.
right. Huh.
I just want to add on to that. So, I mean, now you have a set formula as to you have like a set first team, but like last night probably wasn't convincing at all. So, like, do you think that's down to last night's performance specifically? Do you think that's down to them just putting the foot off the pedal or foot off the gas, or it was just one of those days when nothing went right for Liverpool?
Or were they hungover from excessive celebrations?
Yeah.
And no, I wouldn't go for that hangover bit. That was just a bit of sarcasm and stuff that
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah,
all talk
obviously.
about. Obviously, Klopp was fuming after the game. If you see his post-match interview, he was absolutely fuming with the team's performance. So I would say that we did not take our chances in the start when we had, and when you don't take your chances, the other team punishes you. And when the tough gets going, the going gets tough, the tough gets going. It happens to every team. I think we've scored quite a lot on Man City as well. In the same, once you get an early goal, we tend to capitalize on those and keep scoring. And to our bad luck, we didn't have any fans to rile us up yesterday. So our fans play a
So
big
then,
part in whatever Liverpool
you
do.
said Liverpool missed their chances. I mean, I just remember one Salah opportunity I had.
No, Mane did have
Besides
Salah,
1v1s. Like,
yeah, even
Yeah.
Mane wasn't that solid also yesterday either.
the ball was right at his
Absolutely.
feet and it went through his leg.
yeah.
Do you
Yes.
do you actually believe in Sterling's comments? He said that your title defense started yesterday. Do you feel that's true?
I don't think so because he's still chasing a lot of records this season.
Oh. Records.
But then,
Do you think you all can reach 100? Do you think 100 is possible?
Looks difficult because I don't know if our momentum has been shaken by the lockdown a bit, but I think Klopp is definitely trying to get there. That's his next mission.
What do you make of
All right.
Robertson's performance yesterday?
Yeah.
Because
Robertson's performance.
Robertson's performance yesterday.
yeah, he looked a bit jaded yesterday.
Hmm.
Not taking anything away from Phil Foden, he had an absolute belter. He's been, I think he's been player of the month, whatever you want to call it, for the last 3 games. You have to choose one from the whole Premier League. And yeah, Robertson was looked a bit jaded yesterday, and he was caught out of position a few times. Even Joe Gomez was caught out of position by Ryan Sterling also a couple of times. So yeah, it happens. Sometimes it's just an off day.
It was a heavy defeat, though. Do you feel like this could be the start of another slip up in terms of preparing for the coming season? Because honestly, like,
Absolutely.
Liverpool were outstanding last season as well, but they were just unlucky. You could say that Man City had an even better season, and they lost the Champions League finals. But then, what I saw last year was a very good team in Liverpool, but the board not backing them in terms of further signings, and that was, let's say, acceptable because that team was very fresh, it was young. But again, going into this market, there are reports saying that Liverpool aren't willing to put in a lot of money in terms of new players. So don't you think that Salah, Mane, Firmino will require competition in order to maintain their very best form? Don't you think they need that sort of insecurity in terms of keeping their place in a squad? Because that's something that usually brings about complacency aside.
It does, and in fact, FSG not only sign players just by talking to their DOF, Klopp has a lot of say in the signings as well. So if
Right.
Klopp is adamant on someone, I'm pretty sure FSG will not be rejecting. But if
But
FSG can convince Klopp that this player is not worth paying that amount, and Klopp is convinced, I'm pretty sure I'm fine with that.
But then, what do you think happened with Timo Werner when Klopp was so behind him, evidently, and he ended up coming to Chelsea?
Yeah, so FSG probably must have told him that they are not willing to pay that much money, and Klopp in his mind probably thought that fine, that maybe he's not worth. Klopp must have thought that he's not worth that much money,
I
and
feel it's
if
the other
Klopp
way around,
feels
to be honest,
because
because I feel it was more of the
no,
not willing to make big money moves right now.
no, not really. I'm pretty sure if there was no pandemic and stuff, that Liverpool definitely would have gone for one.
Yeah, Jeet, there was a
Yeah.
report which said that they need to finalize the budget before they can um, bid for players and before they can decide the transfer strategy this season. So probably it was just a case of bad luck that Chelsea swooped in at the right moment. But I
Not
mean,
really. Klopp even had a word with Timo saying that we will not be able to sign you because of so and so reasons, and that is when he accepted the Chelsea offer because that's what was reported by the Athletic.
Yeah, but were you left
yeah, the
disappointed that the club didn't have the financial means to go ahead with the transfer?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Timo Werner is a very good player. He's a very good striker, a very good finisher, and he's been scoring a lot of goals for uh, in the
Leipzig, yeah.
Bundesliga. Of course, we did miss out on someone playing, but
All right. Speaking about transfers, who do you think? I mean, you obviously know that Liverpool's midfield is a bit rusty right now. I mean, it's not top notch. So, do you actually feel Liverpool need to sign someone in midfield, especially?
I think we're lacking just one player in each department, one proper out and out striker, one creative center midfielder, and one solid non-injury prone centre back.
There are reports of Liverpool strongly interested in Thiago from Bayern,
Yeah,
but then looks like there's legs to it.
yeah, he's probably trying to play for a better contract also. Say,
That's also, yeah. Also,
So, let's move
Man
to
City.
yesterday's.
What a win,
Yesterday's-
Akio. We saw you on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, we did see you at the screen, bro. We were watching the game. How did it feel?
Yeah, no, that was good.
wow,
It was
I didn't.
it was something completely different, and yeah, it was a great opportunity. Man City invests a lot of time and effort into getting global fans on the central stage, so that's a really great experience.
Probably once.
All right. So,
Yeah.
So, as you know, I mean, City had a pretty decent. I mean, it was pretty okay season. What do you
Yeah.
think were the down points of this season? You feel anything was bad this season?
Like, look, people might sit and complain about VAR and all those kinds of things, but those are just minimal things, really. If you take away that, Liverpool's lead is still going to be like, what, 8, 10, 12 points more. So
Yeah.
I think I just put it down to there's definitely injuries and there's definitely exhaustion. So I'm not going to sit and blame decisions about it because they would have won the league regardless. So it's definitely has to do with like key injuries. Like Leroy Sané, if you look at his records, he has like 85 goals and assists and 100 starts. So that's really, really good. Laporte, I mean, almost every time he plays, there's a clean sheet. We went to Anfield with Laporte, there was a clean sheet. We had Laporte yesterday as well, there was a clean sheet. So I'd say that those are very important injuries. And the rest, I just take it down to exhaustion because we've got 198 points in 2 seasons. And as much as people were looking forward to a three-peat and a third title in a row, like
It's not likely, yeah. And honestly,
personally see it.
I don't feel Man City actually had a bad season. End of the day, you've won the League Cup. You were in the FA Cup semi-finals. You've come almost second in the league, and you've had a positive result in the Champions League first, like against arguably the best club in the world. So I don't think that's a bad season because actually winning the league thrice in a row has only been done once in the Premier League, if I'm not wrong. So it really takes a lot of luck and fortune to do it again. And I don't think it was a realistic target in terms of aiming for that again. But apart from that,
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree. The thing is, even if you look at when the league was won thrice, it was quite a while ago, and at that time, the level
competition
of,
wasn't much. Yeah,
the competition wasn't really that
games
much.
changed.
Now,
Remember, the games
especially-
changed.
I left
especially
that.
with the it's not just the money that clubs like City or Chelsea has. It's the money that's going into football as a whole. It's the money that's going into, like, almost every Premier League club is getting something like 100 million in TV money. So
Yeah,
it's not of course there are the few clubs that are really extremely rich and all that, but everybody's getting money and everybody has a chance to build.
So, Akio, I mean, do you think company's loss was actually a vital blow to Man City's title chase?
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be a blow. I mean, it's not just about last season. You go back to all the seasons and you look at the records, you look at the games that company has missed, and you look at how City has fared in that time. It's always like most of the time it's screwed up. It's really screwed up if you look at how we play with him and how we play without him. It's not that he is a great captain, he's a great player, he's an excellent defender, but it's not that it's not in our power to replace him. It's just that we had too much dependency on him. It's kind of like what happened with Neymar in the World Cup. Brazil was centering their game all around Neymar. Neymar suddenly gets injured, and then the whole team became helpless. They got thumped by Germany, and they got sent packing. So it's kind of like that. We just based our whole game around company. We just depended so much on him, and relied so much on him, and then suddenly he leaves, and we couldn't really recover from that.
But I feel you have replaced Company and Laporte because he gives you that sort of stability. As in, whenever he plays, you end up keeping a clean sheet. But I think what you're missing is a competent partner for Laporte in terms of. I feel John Stones hasn't lived up obviously to his transfer fee, and Otamendi hasn't exactly been that reliable. So, what centre back do you think City will be going for in this transfer window?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the level that Company has kind of set has been really high, and there's not been a partner that's able to match up to him. We signed Mangala when he was quite young, but he wasn't able to deal with it. We signed Otamendi. Who was really good in the 2017-18 season. He was also the best centre back in the La Liga when we signed him. But I think age caught up, or I don't know what, but he's not been able to do well. And Stones, Guardiola was a huge fan, especially for his ball playing abilities, how good he is in passing and all of that. And he still has good stats in that department. But I think he's quite weak compared to other defenders. He doesn't have the strength to really. He gets bullied quite often. We've seen it this season also. So yeah, a centre back is really important, and we've been linked with quite a couple of centre backs. But I think nothing has been stronger than the links with Koulibaly.
Koulibaly, yeah.
So yeah, this is going to be something really different that City are doing, because over the last 6, 7, or 8 years, we've been going for that signing a young centre back who has potential and then developing him tactic. But it seems now that after failing 4 or 5 times, they're finally ready to actually buy
Go for the big
someone.
one,
Yeah, 70 million for a 29-year-old is a lot of money. He could probably give us 4 years, 5 years max. But I think City have decided to just give it up and go for a well-established centre-back who can just come in and reinforce the defence immediately.
Like Liverpool have showed us that paying money for a top centre-back always pays off. Like Van Dijk made all the difference to the season after coming in. So like, I feel
exactly. Like credit to Liverpool for that, because he did come from Southampton. He was about 27 or 26 and a half, I think, years old. I mean, and they paid 75 million. People were laughing at them. People were laughing at him. I was laughing. Everybody was laughing. Everybody was making fun.
I was crying because he rejected Chelsea.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even City missed out on it, because the report said that City did not want to pay anything more than 60 million. And Liverpool just came in. They knew that he was quality, and they said, "Here you go. Here's 75 million." People started laughing, and now Liverpool fans are the ones laughing at everyone else with their Premier League title and their Champions League title. So that was a big miss.
Now that City has already spent millions and millions on fullbacks, do you think they need to spend more on fullbacks to get Guardiola the ones he actually wants? Because to be honest, I don't think Mendy is convincing enough to play as a left back for City for the coming years. And there's a big question on Cancelo as well, because I don't think Guardiola trusts him as much as one would like to.
Yeah,
I think there's a bigger question. There's a bigger question if Pep will stay if that European ban remains.
I think Pep in his interview says that he's going to run down his contract at least. I feel he'll stay for another year and then he'll move on. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we do happen to win the Champions League this year, I wouldn't blame him for leaving, because he's come to England, he's achieved everything. He knows that the Champions League is the only thing left to do. And if he doesn't do that, then everybody's going to remember his spell in England just by missing out on that Champions League. If he does that, then I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves even this season.
And that's what Pep's done at Bayern, at Barca. He usually leaves after winning the biggest honor.
Yeah, exactly. And he's done it all. I mean, it started really, really bad. We finished in 4th place. It was a horrible season. But then we picked it up and it was relentless after that. And referring to the fullback thing, it is a bit confusing, because right now, if you see our best fullback is actually Kyle Walker. He's been really, really immense, and he's been a solid defender. And it's kind of funny that we've spent so much money on these other fullbacks. And I mean, I don't blame us for spending so much money. When we signed Mendy, he was the
best left back,
Yeah, and he was the best left back. When we signed Cancelo, he was the best right back in the Serie A for 2 years in a row. So automatically, when you make it in the team of the year, the price just goes up. The clubs just rise the price up. So I don't know what the fullback scene. We are linked with Chilwell, who's like what 70 to 80 million. I
Yeah,
don't get
but
that.
that's useless. Yeah.
English market.
All
is
right. Speaking of
inflated.
fullbacks, yeah, go on, go on. Hello, Conrad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Speaking of fullback,
I think the English market is inflated.
Acha. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Acha,
and it's
speak.
usually clubs like Leicester who try to play hardball with their
Yeah,
like
Leicester are
Yeah.
inflating the market too much.
They tried to sell us Mahrez for 90 million in
Yeah.
the previous
yeah
season, and then we held out, and 60 million is still quite a lot. But yeah,
yeah they're quite resilient.
Asha Akio, speaking of the fullback situation, you actually feel Eric Garcia is a good centre back option? I mean, seeing his performance in the past two games,
yeah.
whenever he played, you feel he's a good option?
The thing is that he probably lacks the kind of physical features that you would look for in a centre back for the Premier League. Something like someone who's 6'2", 3, and someone who's physically well built and all that. But I think technically he's an excellent centre back. Like there's a reason why Pep likes him, and it's because he's got that very technical mind. If you look back at his history, he has captained Barcelona at every single youth level, whether it's under 12, under 10, under 14, under 16. And if you look at his international side, that is Spain, he's always played a level higher than he is. So when he was 15, he played for the under 17. When he was 16, he played for 18. Now he's 19 and he's playing for the under 21. So I think that speaks volumes. And his agent, I did read an article though about Barcelona's aging squad, and Piqué is 33 years old, and they're actually looking at bringing Garcia back because he knows the Barcelona way. He's played at every level, and I don't think he'd say no to a move to his boyhood club. But Carlos Puyol is his agent, and Puyol is the one that told him to move to City if you want to get a better career. So I think if we can promise him game time, like yesterday's game, where we played him in such a huge, massive game like Liverpool, I think he'll stay here.
and just adding to that, I mean, he's very, very young right now. And as you've already said, yeah, I mean, I saw flashes of him yesterday being a very, very good centre back. For one probably City should try to preserve for the future. And
Yeah.
I mean, his physicality will obviously improve from now on. You see players like Greenwood, you see players like Foden,
Yeah.
Rashford, those people, they eventually work on their physicality in those 20 to 21st kind of an age. So I feel at the end of the day, you all have a pretty good player in Eric Garcia who can probably partner Laporte for the longer future, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree.
I guess we should move to yesterday's game then. Conrad, what do you think went wrong in yesterday's game for Liverpool?
I don't know. I think if you probably took our chances right ahead in the start, it would have been a different scenario. But once City started scoring, they were relentless, and our squad looked a little bit jaded too. So we just couldn't pick ourselves up from where City took us down.
All right, and yesterday's, I mean, we spoke about this, right? Yesterday, one second, we have to cut this out. Yesterday, besides
I mean, yeah,
yesterday's game, I mean,
sort of. But then, if you guys want to speak specifically about some aspect of the game or something, we can talk about that.
I think you should be talking to Akio about it.
all right, we'll get Akio's thoughts on the game. So we'll start now.
Yeah.
All right, Akio, yesterday's game was obviously a massive result for City. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it was a great game. I don't think City fans were too confident, too overconfident of winning the game, because we didn't know how exactly the players would respond to the Guard of Honor and the kind of energy that Liverpool is on right now. But yeah, I mean, there were a few hints. Like I think Mendy a few days before the game said that we are prepared to show them why we are back-to-back title winners. Sterling also said after yesterday's game that Pep is the one who told the team that your new season starts from today, and this is your chance. You have a test to go out and prove it. So I think they really used that energy well, and we capitalized on it really well. Like I don't know how to explain why Liverpool was so bad, but now that I think of it, probably losing to Chelsea was a blessing in disguise, because it really gave Liverpool the chance to celebrate. I mean, I don't believe in that hungover excuse, but I think definitely celebrating and all that did go to them, because even if you look at the team yesterday, the Liverpool team, there was not a single player on the pitch who you could say put in a good fight. Right from the forwards who were really rusty and not very clinical, right to the midfielders who couldn't break down City's game at all, right to the defenders like Van Dijk. Joe Gomez was subbed off at halftime. The fullbacks had like a nightmare. Like Robertson, I saw in the post-match interview, Michael Owen was saying that Robertson, you may as well just blame him for the 3 goals, because he was really all over the place for those goals. And then Alisson also, he got some stick for coming out of his line for that Foden goal. The 5th goal, which got disallowed, he was at his near post and beaten again. So as much as like we don't want to talk about the hangover part of it, I think the celebrations did kind of shake them up, and the focus was not there yesterday, because I think every player on the pitch just couldn't find their feet yesterday.
Conrad, do you agree with what Akio said?
Definitely, because even I feel that had City beat Chelsea, the mindset for this game would have been totally different of the Liverpool players. They would definitely want to win at the Etihad, the title, and it would have been a totally different ball game.
No, I mean the part where he said that Liverpool's midfield did not have too much of, did not control the game as much as they wanted.
I think Henderson had a fantastic game. He was the only player that looked hungry and wanted to get on the ball and chase the ball down. City, Pep's passing, Pep with any team, the passing is incredible, and it's not very easy to chase his players down and get the ball, because Liverpool, if you see their tactics, they are very good at picking the ball off a City midfielder or a City defender while they are dwelling on the ball and capitalizing on that mistake, which City did not make yesterday. They were absolutely fantastic passing the ball around. They did not give, even though we were pressing. I think Salah, Mane, and Firmino were pressing a lot, but they just couldn't manage to get the ball.
Yeah, I mean, that's what those are 2 points of his that I'd like to touch on, especially the pressing game, which he said that's one of the main features. Like, it's one of the key aspects of Liverpool's game. They're always running around like madmen and pressing and chasing down every single ball, and you don't have a minute to breathe. And if you look back at the City games in the past, a lot of mistakes have happened with City passing the ball and then Liverpool just coming and grabbing it and then scoring a goal. And he also brought up a point about what was the point he brought up? He also brought up a point about scoring the first goal, like an early goal. And that's something we as City fans always worry about, because Liverpool keep doing that at Anfield all the time.
Yeah.
They'll try to score they'll try to take some shot from outside the box and score within the first 10 minutes, unsettle the team. The crowd gets all riled up, and it's basically game over from then, because once that early goal goes in, there's no coming back. And I think that's become one of the key features in the Liverpool and City games in the last few years. Whoever scores first just goes on to win the game.
Yeah, so building on that, Conrad, do you think Liverpool are a bit over-reliant on Anfield's atmosphere? Because you could see the fact that after we started playing without fans, the performance level has dipped of Liverpool.
Not really. I wouldn't give it a complete this thing that it is we are reliant on the fans, but of course they are our 12th man, and they definitely add another separate angle to our game. But I don't want to take anything away from Man City's performance also yesterday, because they were incredible on the pitch, and yeah, we definitely weren't at our best. So I wouldn't have want to give that excuse of just the fans not being there, being a part of it.
So would you think a lot about this 4-0 thrashing by City, or would you just move on from it instantly and look at the brighter picture ahead?
No, we've already moved on.
Already moved on.
And Conrad, just adding, are you as a Liverpool fan worried about Firmino's form? I mean, he hasn't scored at Anfield at all, I think, this season.
Since February or something.
Or no, he hasn't scored at Anfield, I think, at all. He's not even scored one goal at Anfield.
No, this season, yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
And Or are you with the notion of him being a defensive striker? I know how important he is to Liverpool, but what is your take on that?
I think he adjusts very well in the false nine role. And if you go to see our team, I think everyone has scored a goal this season. Most of the players, I think, apart from Joe Gomez, I think everybody has scored a goal this season. And if you see our goals tally also, it's right up there. It's not that we're lacking goals because we're getting goals from the midfield, we're getting goals from our defenders, we're getting goals from our fullbacks as well. Not only goals, there. In fact, Trent and Robertson have quite a lot of assists also this season. So yeah, he's not been able to score at home, but I'm not worried about it because the goals are coming. In,
So
but
you would
in
rather,
fact, this time we've not scored away for I think 3 games in a row or 4 games in a row.
yeah, true,
Not
true, true. So so you were saying that you would rather prefer having a striker like Roberto Firmino in your team than like an out and out poacher or a goal scorer who give you 20 goals a season.
no, yeah, no, not exactly because as I said before, we definitely need one out and out striker because Origi is more of your kind of a striker that goes onto the wing, drifts in, cuts in, and scores. So he's not the kind of a target man every football team wants to have. In fact, I'm surprised Klopp does not have someone like a target man because then at a BBB he had a Lewandowski. So I thought that even at Liverpool he'd prefer to have something like a proper out and out striker, proper poacher.
Hmm.
But
But
I'm pretty
obviously,
sure
yeah.
he wanted that with Werner. He looked at Werner to be that person and couldn't get him. But I'm sure in the future he will pick someone up.
I mean, people do call out Firmino on his lack of goals, but I feel he's the reason that allows Mane and Salah so much freedom. Because if you see, when you
Yeah,
two, if you got two wingers such as Mane and Salah who can get you all goals a season, you wouldn't need a goal from anyone else. Then you need a striker who's going to come deep, set them free, put those long balls in, put those through balls in. Because also, if you look at the way France plays, they play with Giroud, who's also not an out and out striker who makes runs and scores those
He's
uh,
drifting back.
makes those fast runs. He's the one who sets Mbappe free. He's the one who sets Griezmann free. So I feel it's not fair to criticize Firmino on his lack of goals when he enables two world-class players in Liverpool to score that many.
He definitely brings out the best out of Salah and Mane. And not only that, he is very unselfish when it comes to getting goals. If he only has he has an opportunity to score, he'll probably find a better pass to Salah or Mane if they are free. So yeah, in that sense, he brings a lot to the team.
All right, then, Akio, as you know, today Sane was announced that that he's left. So, do you think that Jaden Braff, an academy player, is a suitable replacement for Sane, or we need to go to the transfer market again for that position?
Yeah, I mean, you got to replace Sane is like quite a big hole to be missing on that left side, and we haven't really had a left winger at all for like years now. Even under Pep, there was Brahim Diaz, but he chose to go back to his boyhood club. There was Sancho, who was really, really good. I even saw him in the Under 17 World Cup. But again, Sancho is someone who demanded game time from Pep. He demanded to be a regular starter. And Pep said, look, we have a lot of players. We do a lot of rotation. And of course, at the age of 18, we can't just guarantee you to be starting. And he felt that I can do much better than this. I can be balling at some other club, and fair play to him because it takes a lot of guts to do that. He did that. He went to Dortmund, and he's one of the best players in the Bundesliga now. So I'd say that's a slap in Pep's face, and it's good. It's good when players can actually do that. But we've not really had a winger for a long time. We've had players like Nolito and all on the left, so that doesn't make sense at all. But Braaf is a very, very talented player, really good. He's from Netherlands. He's got a lot of skills. He scores. If you watch his academy highlights, he's a brilliant player.
Pretty good.
But players at this age are a bit like Pep is a very straightforward guy. If you're ready to keep your head down and listen, he can work wonders with you. But if you're someone who has a little bit of that pride and confidence, which is okay, if you are a player that has that quality, it's good to be kind of someone like Ronaldo or whatever. But Pep doesn't work well with that. Like we know that we've seen all his previous clubs. He came here, he threw Joe Hart out, he's let Ronaldinho go, Ibrahimovic. He just doesn't work well with ego. So if Jayden Braff can keep his head down, then that will be good. But if he's going to follow Sancho's route, then I guess we'll have to look for a left winger. We've been linked with lots of guys. We've been linked with Mikel Oyarzabal. Been linked with Ferran Torres. But when you look at the numbers of these guys, when you look at the numbers of these guys and the returns and the kind of gameplay, nothing really matches Sane. Like, I'm not bragging or anything, but the potential that Sane had was really immense. And yeah, he just wanted to leave, and there's nothing we could do about that.
But then we already have a player in Bernardo Silva who's capable of playing on the wings, and he hasn't really got that many minutes this season. So would you give him the opportunity to assume Sane's role, give him a chance next season, or would you rather buy someone more established in that role?
Yeah, the thing with Bernardo is he can play both as a winger and as a central attacking midfielder. And when we look at his role at City, especially last season, where he had like one of his best seasons ever, he was doing really well when he was playing in the middle as compared to the wings. But yeah, Bernardo is an option. Foden is a very, 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 very underrated option, which nobody is looking at, because if you look at the stats of when he has played winger, he played on the right wing in the Carabao Cup final, and he won the man of the match and he got an assist. He's played on the left and the right wing in the Under-17 World Cup. I was reporting for the Under-17 World Cup, and I got to watch him live and follow all his games. And he was immense. Like, he was assisting, he was scoring, he was creating. Liverpool's Ryan Brewster was like the top scorer of the World Cup, but you could see how much work Foden was doing. Even when he played in Goa, when he played in the final, he scored 2 goals in a final. He got the golden ball, which was the player of the tournament for the World Cup. And again, that's all as a winger. And when we were reporting for the World Cup, we would get like reports on players and their skills and their attributes. And the scouting report for Foden said that he's a 2-footed player, very much a 2-footed player, can play on both wings. And he even takes penalties with either foot. So he can take it either with his left or his right. So again, that's a lot of potential that can be unlocked over there.
Yeah, so how much care do you think City need to take with the Foden situation to avoid another potential Sancho leaving Man City because of lack of minutes? Because David Silva is leaving now, so that leaves a void in midfield. But then again, there's Bernardo Silva who could equally be preferred for that role. And there's Foden who can play on the wing. And so don't you think you already have the replacements at your club in terms of the extensive depth? And which is why you should consider signing established 60-70 million winger to prevent Foden leaving.
Yeah, no, personally, I feel that we have the replacement. We have David Silva's replacement. I think Pep has also said it once or twice. But I think Foden has peaked at the exact right time, because we were linked with, we were in the market for a midfielder, I think, since David Silva is leaving, and we'll be left with just Gundo and KDB and Bernardo, I think. So we were linked a lot with Hussein Aouar, and people were saying that Aouar to City, and Pep Guardiola, after we faced Lyon, had said to the media that he's a really excellent player. He's an incredible player, and he resembles Zidane and all of that. And we were linked very, very heavily with him. And I think during these links, Foden has just peaked immensely. Like, I think he's been the best player in the Premier League since the league has started. He's got 5 goals and assists in just 3 games or something.
Yeah.
So I think this is the best time that it could happen. And it's the best time he could break into the, first team with a manager like Pep at the helm, someone who's brought out so many kids and shaped so many players. Like, that's the best. And I think the fact that he's a local lad, like he's actually from proper Stockport. His whole family has been supporting City, and he's played for City right from the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think that will help us in keeping him at the club. I don't think he would be wanting to force a move straight away. I think the biggest problem was the Euros, and Gareth Southgate seems to refuse to get him into the team because he just wants him to keep playing, even though every time he plays, he shows that he's a really good player. But now he's been playing continuously. He's been proving it. And yeah.
I mean, I met Bernardo. I met Bernardo Silva personally. I did not get to take a picture with him because it doesn't look good that I went in this thing. He's a very close friend of one of my friend who's in the UK. He lives in Manchester, and he even gave me tickets to the Manchester Shakhtar game. I think it was it in the Champions League
Yeah.
at the Etihad. So he seemed like a very nice and genuine person, and I did not expect it from him yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're like in a much better position to ask him that because I wish I could. I wish I could ask him that if I personally knew him but a lot of the City fans, I mean, a lot of the British fans loved that because they took it as just classic because it's the kind of banter that English people do,
Housery.
and yeah, they love that kind of shithousing as they call it. But yeah, I saw the video many times, and I don't really know what was the reason for him not to clap because I saw him with the cup. There were many options, like you could just drink the thing and then clap. You could keep it down and then clap. You could also clap with one hand. But yeah, I guess he really did not want to clap. I did put out a tweet. I edited a photo of him having like drinking a bottle. I put a coffee cup there, and I edited another picture with a coffee mug. And I asked him. I tweeted to him, so hopefully he'll reply to that if he can reply to that. But I think it's too sensitive of a topic, and I don't think he will address it. But it would be really interesting for someone to ask him this question in a press conference or something like that, because it would be really interesting to see what his answer was, since he was the only player who did not clap, and it could very visibly be seen.
Yeah, I mean that's what brings out fun, to be honest. Like even I think
Yeah.
United or City have not congratulated Liverpool via their Twitter handles, I guess, this season. Or when-
City has, United hasn't.
City have. City
Okay,
have.
United haven't. So you can see United are burning already. Like, I think it's good.
They put out a tweet, but it was like what do you say? They put out a tweet saying 17 plus 3. So they had a picture of
Oh,
Fred
yeah.
and saying 20. So I think that was quite cool.
Yeah, so I think this is time for English football to really hit its peak again. Like 10 years ago, English football was actually dominated. What would you think would be the table like in the 2021 season, considering transfers that could happen, managerial changes that could happen, and the overall picture? What are the predictions?
Who's going first?
Okay, I'll go.
Akio. Asha, Conrad, go first.
Go on.
So, considering City's ban stays and they are not in the Champions League next season, I think they are going to run away with the Premier League.
Yeah.
So I think City is going to finish first, Liverpool second, Chelsea third, and United fourth.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Chelsea have been building a very good squad with their youngsters, and they've got Ziyech now. They've got Werner coming in.
Yeah, we'll get to Chelsea in a
good
bit. I
players.
guess we'll get in the prediction now. We'll get to Chelsea in a bit. Akio, what are your thoughts on this? The table
Yeah,
next year.
I'd love to say that City would finish first, but like as much as I hate Man United and always have for so many years now, I'd hate to say that they have a really, 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 really great team. Everything is clicking from the defense to the midfield to the strikers, and Chelsea is looking good again. Liverpool is obviously looking good, so it's very hard to say. Like I think Conrad said that City would finish first because if the ban stays. But then again, if the ban stays, we might also lose players like Kevin De Bruyne and all of that. So I don't really know if he could finish first. But yeah, I think there'll be a fighting spirit. So City first, Liverpool second, maybe United or Chelsea third. I can't say who would click because United are already clicking as a team. Chelsea will still have to gel a bit and work things around.
Yeah.
Jaden.
All right. So, in my opinion, City would finish first. I mean, as Akio said, it would be tough, even if the ban stays. But I feel the ban would stay for a year at least, or a year only. So, like De Bruyne and all the key players would stay. So, City would actually be first. I feel Chelsea would be second. Or Chelsea or United would be second. Liverpool would come third, and then United fourth, in case they don't finish second. I feel that would be. Or maybe I could expect Wolves or maybe Leicester also to finish fourth. But again, Chelsea and United's financial power is such that they might dominate over those teams. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even I feel like if the ban is upheld, then I see City going away with the title, just like Chelsea did under Conte when they were banned, when they were not playing in Europe, not banned. So if the ban stays, then I see City winning the title, and if the ban doesn't stay, but I don't see them sweeping away with the title, but it could be really intense. But if there's one team I feel which could fall off the board, I think that's Liverpool, honestly, because I feel the board really ought to back Klopp more and get him more world-class signings. And unless they put in that money, I don't see that same starting 11 putting in performances like they have been for the past 2 years. So Liverpool could slip down to second or third. And I think with the sort of energy that Chelsea is showing in the transfer market, I see them pushing up to a second spot. Yeah.
So
Even if you see, we don't have enough squad depth, because yesterday he took off
exactly,
Joe
I was
Gomez
just going
because
to
he was on a yellow card and he didn't have a centre back to bring in.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
He had to play Jorginho at centre back. So definitely,
Yeah, so I mean, yeah. So just adding to Conrad and Jeet, I feel that City, assuming that they have a 1 year ban, I do believe that they will keep their players, and so I expect City to win the league, provided that they have some sort of a defensive cover. They invest in defense in the summer. And second, I believe is going to be Liverpool, but I have doubts because Liverpool's defense has been, they've been good, but they have been exposed too many times this season, especially on the right hand side of the defense. Trent and Gomez or Matip, whoever plays, they are conceding a lot of chances from that side. So I'm not too convinced, but I do expect them because of their mentality to finish second. I think third, I'll go for an optimistic one. I think United are heading in the right direction and are probably 2-3 signings away from challenging to the top and closing the gap. And fourth, I think, Chelsea. And honorable mention, I will give Wolves, because I think Wolves have a a very, very strong team.
Yeah.
All right,
it
then,
depends
I
even
feel-
where United finish this season, because if they're playing Europa League, that's a lot of games. So
Yeah.
that
This
Yeah.
season,
definitely affects the season.
you're asking me about this season, where they're going to finish.
Yeah, I'm saying if they finish outside the Champions League and again are playing Europa League, it's going to be difficult for them to get the third spot. That's why I said so.
No, what I feel is that United is building on their squad depth slowly. I mean, there's miles and miles of difference between the squad which Jose had and which Oli has now, and you can see that you're fighting for places. Everyone is fighting for places. Igalo has come in. He has improved Martial's game. He has improved Rashford's game. So there is a lot of competition in the squad. So I do expect them to compete in all competitions next season. And given how they're performing now, I wouldn't want to get too far ahead. But there are a far lot more positives than there are negatives right now. And the negatives probably only being we missing a finger and probably another creative backup for Bruno. So if we do manage to get those things right in the transfer market, I don't believe that we are in such a bad position for the next year. So that's why I'm optimistic that we can finish third, because there has been a transformation of some sort since Oli has come in, and he's trying to get us back to where we actually belong. So fingers crossed, probably.
All right. Vinamra, regarding United, what do you think United? Do you think United would finish top for this season?
See, I mean, as he said in his press conference, I think they're taking one game at a time. They're not getting too far ahead of themselves. So as a fan, even I am not getting too far ahead of myself. I would like to believe that they should finish in the top 4 given their easy run of fixtures. But those are the same fixtures which we lost probably in the earlier part of the season. So there is no complacency that should be taken. But I mean, you would expect a team like United, given how they're performing now, to finish in the top 4.
I mean, I expect them to finish in the top 4 given the recent form and the fixtures they got. I actually feel Leicester might drop out of the.
I think Leicester's going to drop out. Yeah, Leicester has a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, even with Chelsea, they're not in the best form. I mean, we beat City, we beat Leicester, but then we mess up with West Ham, and that's something that's always going to remain with the young squad that we have. We cannot expect them to deliver like performances week in week out. So I think this is where Man United's defensive stability is helping them right now. You just don't seem to concede at the moment. So I appreciate that, and I wish Chelsea had that sort of defensive shape this season. But I think that's going to haunt us till the end of the season. But hopefully we make it in the top four and United come along. I feel.
Speaking of Manchester United, recently they won what 4-0?
3-0.
3-0 Brighton.
3-0, 3-0, 3-0. So, Vinamra, what are your thoughts on that game?
Ooh, I think the performance actually exceeded my expectations. I thought it's going to be another tight, scrappy game, but I'm actually impressed as to how they managed the entire game. Matic, Bruno, Pogba, I think they are the template for the future, and the team has to be built around them. The game was pretty good. I mean, we played some superb football, consistent playing, attacking spaces, attacking wide areas. I think it was a very good watch. I mean, as a United fan, a lot of positives to take from the game. Especially
Correct.
agree with the way he performed in the game. And not to forget the last goal, the third goal, I think was the highlight probably of the season to show how far we've come. Was probably the third goal. Yeah, that was the
Do you
highlight.
think Manchester United's side has been elevated after the Bruno signing, or you think that
Definitely,
it's just
definitely, 100%.
just a
I mean, that's what I was probably. That's why probably there was such a slump in form earlier, because there was no player who put his hand up and he took charge of things. Our forwards were pretty much creating goals for themselves. There was no support from midfield at all. And then Bruno has come in and he has had a tremendous impact. And I mean, you can see that all the players are performing much, much better since his arrival than what they were before. I mean, obviously, like Scott, Fred, and Matic were performing, but I mean, his arrival has just sort of given the confidence which they lacked, and it has like elevated everything.
That's true. That's true. And United, you're saying top four, so that means Chelsea would technically miss out on top four. So let's get into Chelsea's recent loss against West Ham, shall we? Chelsea
It's
lost
depressing,
3-2
man.
versus
I so hate.
And,
Man. I hate these London derbies, bro. Because the problem with this is there's so many clubs in London that they get some mad energy playing against the likes of Chelsea, Arsenal. So like it's never an easy fixture playing Palace or West Ham or even QPR if they were in the league. Because the problem with that is like if you're a small London club and you're playing a big one, you always have a point to prove. And it's not just the fact that West Ham are fighting relegation. I saw that in the reverse fixture as well when we lost 1-0 and Cresswell scored that. It's very difficult to play these teams, and like unless you really have a strong built team, it's always going to be a tricky fixture. And I think we just succumbed to our inexperience in terms of young players and falling off the sort of consistency levels you need. I mean, I was very impressed the way we beat City. It was a really good win, not expected again. Then we go on to beat Leicester. That's really promising again. And just like when those two things happen, I just had a feeling in my back end we're gonna mess up against West Ham, and that's been Chelsea's story this year. And you can't really blame them because of the squad Lampard inherited and what he's trying to do. But then yeah, it was depressing.
all right.
I
Akio,
feel. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Akio, what are your thoughts on Chelsea's problems, defensive problems this year?
I think it's just a work in progress. Like problems were bound to be there. Like you can't expect miracles in the first season, especially with someone with as less managerial experience as Lampard. Like I really like Frank Lampard. He's like my favorite English midfielder and like one
Best,
of my
yeah,
all-time favorite midfielders.
we can say the best midfielder.
Yeah.
Yeah, after he's
City legend too, but yeah, you can't really fault him much. What he's done is pretty impressive. Before the restart and quite like a few months before, like the lead that they were in was pretty impressive for the kind of youngsters that they've incorporated in the squad and all. And if you take into consideration the transfer ban and all that, but yeah, I think they'll do pretty well, but they need to be on their toes now.
Yeah.
I think United is just 2 points behind. I'm not sure.
Yup.
Yeah,
But,
2 points.
Yeah, there was actually quite a gap, and now it's reduced to that much. So as a City fan, I'm very, very happy with that, because I know that Chelsea face Liverpool, and Liverpool need to lose around 5 points more to miss out on the 100 points. So I think that will give Chelsea some reason to turn up. But again, that's the day Liverpool will be lifting the title, and that game will be a really good game to watch, actually.
Yeah, definitely. And like Chelsea have been impressive against Liverpool this year. Like we've played them thrice. The first
Chelsea has actually been Chelsea in recent years has been more impressive than City versus Liverpool. Right from the time Hazard was there, and even this season, last season, they just somehow always just get a win.
Yeah, we don't really seem to fear them as much as any other team would. Like Super Cup, like it came so soon for Lampard, and yet we took you all to pens and lost out on pens, which isn't the worst. And then again, we knocked you out of the FA Cup. So I'm actually looking forward to the game, and I think we could pull out a surprise.
All right.
What do you think? Do you fear Billy Gilmore?
I think we've got 2 over you this season out of the 3 times we played. So not really much fear playing Chelsea this season, because I think we keep the ball much better, and Chelsea kind of sit back and defend. So
no, not really this season. I mean,
it's been kind of a gameplay to sit behind and then hit them on the counter, hit us on the counter attack. So yeah, we are defensively pretty stable this season, and I think if the players are in the right mindset, it could be a very good game. And
I mean, sorry to
Chelsea, I think
I'm saying mindset is really key because. Oh, sorry, go on, continue.
No, you go on.
No, I was saying mindset is really key because Liverpool now have nothing to play for, which is why I think it'll be easier to play Liverpool, because you will not have that sort of motivation that you had previously in this season.
No, I beg to differ. I think we have a lot to play for. We have
100 points.
Yeah, unbeaten at home in the season. We are definitely chasing a Chelsea's home record. It'll probably take us another 2 seasons, but still we are chasing that record. Then we are chasing the 100 points. In fact, we want to go way past that. Yeah, but I think for 4th place is going to go right down to the wire. If you've seen the fixtures, I think on the last day, all the top 4 teams are playing. Those teams which are playing each other.
It's really good, yeah.
That is playing
Chelsea play Wolves and United play Leicester. So that's literally the 4 teams waiting for the 3rd and 4th.
So,
but I think
I'm pretty sure it's going to go right down to the wire.
Yeah, it'll go down to the wire.
I feel it's going to be decided by them.
No, bro.
Yeah, that's true.
It has to go to the last day. I mean, it's literally 2 points gap between 1 point between Chelsea and Leicester, right? Or is it? What is
The thing is that the FA Cup semi-finals have wrecked the schedule, so it's definitely go down to the last day, because what has happened with the FA Cup semi-final now is the second last game of the season has been pushed to midweek, just 3 days before the final game, and that weekend is taken by the FA Cup. So even if you look at Chelsea and Liverpool, Chelsea will play United in the FA Cup semi-final. 3 days later, they'll play Liverpool in the Premier League, and then 3 days later, they'll play the final game of the season. So that FA Cup semi-final has really...
It's really messed up. I mean, they should have followed the pattern that UEFA did with Champions League, like shift the entire competition to the end of season and finish it in a week.
But it's not possible now, because there is Champions League and Europa League on 5th, because you have to complete 1 leg.
But is it after the season?
The first leg has to be completed, and then from 8th or probably 10th, I think the normal quarters will start. I think quarters are semis.
All right. I guess then we can move to Manchester United then. Want to move to Manchester United? Akio, Conrad, want to say anything about United?
I think United have kicked in right after Bruno has signed for them. He's been a fantastic signing. He's getting the goals, he's getting the assists. I've brought him in my FPL team, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Same.
Yeah, same. This game week he got a lot of points. Yeah, 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even though people are saying that Bruno has changed a lot in the team, somewhere I still feel inconsistent because I watched the Norwich game the other day and they were pretty shabby. In fact, Norwich kept the ball much better than what even though Pogba and Bruno were there in the second half in the team. And
I mean, it took
they went
them.
down to 10 men.
Yeah.
They still played well.
It took them 3 to score against 10-man Norwich, so that was a bit disappointing, given they had the best team on.
See, but then again, so the thing is, they are playing in and out every week. So I mean, the fitness levels did take on them that week, or that match particularly because we went into extra time. So I don't. And the thing is, we created a lot of chances. It's just that we didn't have the best of luck that day, and like both our goals was sort of scrappy kind of a goals. But I don't really blame our players for that performance. It was just down to us getting the game to extra time, which was not needed at all because like it took a toll on fitness levels. Just compromised the next few games. Like there's going to be, I think, rotation now, more rotation in the upcoming games.
Chelsea and Leicester are just inviting United into the top 4.
Sorry?
Chelsea and Leicester are just inviting United into the top 4.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was how it was last year as well. It went down.
The race for top 4 has always been very scrabbly and, with one loss, one win. It's always been a mess, always.
But to be honest, I feel this season has been the worst of all seasons. I mean, teams have lost 8-8, 9-9 games. I mean, that's relegation form.
That's really poor.
That's very, very poor. So I don't know. I mean, this season has been, it's been very off.
I think
Then
City also
again,
has
this
lost
season,
6.
yeah, I think, we've lost. This is the
8-8.
most we've lost. This is the most we've lost since Pellegrini was at charge.
Yeah, Pellegrini's 15-16 season.
So I think a lot of the clubs have been off color this season because I was just looking at the top scorers charts yesterday before Oba took over Wadi, and if you looked at the history, Wadi was on 17 goals in December, and in the last 7 months he scored just 2 goals. So he was the top scorer in December. In the last 7 months, he scored just 2 goals, and he's still the top scorer. So that just shows how poor, everyone has been.
A lot of inconsistency. Yeah,
it's unbelievable that he scored 2 goals in his last 12 games, and he's still the top scorer in the Premier League.
And bro, if you look at it realistically, like from 12th to probably the 3rd position, anyone can finish anywhere. It's that tight this season. That is another testament to the fact that there has been a very, very inconsistent season by everyone. And I think some of the teams have been in a rebuild phase, especially United, Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea. They all have been in a rebuild phase.
I mean,
probably
I don't completely agree with that. If you see, you can say Chelsea's been a rebuild phase because they changed managers, they were transfer banned, they lost their only, they lost the guy who used to carry their attack. But if you look at United, if you look at Arsenal, you can say that they've been in rebuild for the last 3 years, for the past 4 years. So I don't think they've come into this season assuming that it's going to be a transitional one. I think it's just been this way for United for the last 4 years, if you see. You did spend 150 million in the summer transfer window before this season. So you can't go in saying it was a rebuild season and after Bruno, you've almost spent 200 million on a squad for the season.
So see, how I see it is that when a manager leaves or when a manager gets sacked, there are certain players which do not fit the club DNA or the club, the manager who's just come in, his stature or his probably the way he wants to play. So in those terms, obviously, to ship players out, you have to bring in the players which will fit his style. So that will amount to a rebuild. And I agree that the signings, I mean, see, if you see all the signings have worked, that none of United signings have not performed.
Yeah, I'm not saying the signings haven't, but I'm saying you did invest a lot of money before the season, so this shouldn't have been a transitional one for you guys.
So that's what I'm saying. It is a transition one because there was a sacking in the middle of the year, in the middle of a season. So probably this season is the one. You see, you can't immediately expect to get back on top after a manager gets sacked. That also, the manager getting sacked when we are 6th or 7th position. So ultimately, slowly and steadily, from 7th you move to 4th. Then from 4th to you challenge for the title. So now is the phase where we are cementing our place in the top 4. And then probably the following seasons, we look to close the gap and get back to where we belong. So this is what I define as a rebuild phase.
But that means you accepted this season as a sacrifice already, and you didn't mind that.
This season is what do you mean by sacrifice?
As in you termed it as transitional even before the season began, but just because you had a new manager, and you wouldn't mind if your club ended up winning nothing the whole year.
So I would obviously mind because we as a United fan, I've been a fan since I was probably 8 years old. So I have seen probably a trophy probably every year till 16, 17. So obviously I would want the club to win something or the other. But I mean, you have to also look at it pragmatically and realistically that when a manager comes in, you have to give him some sort of time to get the players he wants, to probably play the style which we're finally playing. This is what I feel Oli wanted to bring to the club. How he wanted to play can be seen now in these games how we are playing. So exactly, now that he's got his best squad, now is the time we take the next step and we move to the next step to probably challenging for the title, closing the gap to Liverpool and City.
I mean, that's a patient approach, but yeah, could pay off.
Yeah.
Akio, you had a lot to say about United's progress towards this, towards challenging the title.
Towards us, you mean? Or towards the
title? Yeah, I mean, United. You had a lot to say. United is slowly progressing towards second, or maybe even challenging for the title.
Oh yeah. Again, to touch on the points that he spoke about, I think the biggest mistake that United made was when someone of a stature like Sir Alex Ferguson left the club, and then got someone like David Moyes to replace him. Like what he said made sense, that you keep having new managers, new players. They need players that fit that DNA. But I think when you had someone of that stature, you have to get a replacement of that stature, because when everyone is so used to listening to such a big figure, and then no disrespect to David Moyes, but you bring in such a guy who's maybe half the stature of Alex Ferguson, people are obviously not going to take him seriously. People are not going to play that well. So it's going to force another change in manager, and that's going to keep happening. And as we can see, even with the signing of Bruno, Man United's spending since Ferguson has left has now touched almost $1 billion. It's touched almost $1 billion, and they've not won the league. Forget the league; they've not finished above City for the last 7 years. Even when City was at their worst and they finished in 4th place or something like that, United still finished in 5th. So that's what's been worrying. But as much as I hate to admit it, they low-key have a good team. They always have. But it's just that a few figures in the team, a few bits of arrogance and cockiness, and all of that has been shaking it up. Yeah, has been shaking up the team a lot. So, but if you retrospect and properly look at United, they definitely have the potentials. Look at just the games against City. Again, I'll keep saying this. I hate to say it, but they absolutely tore us apart at the Etihad. Those 3 players, Rashford, Martial, and Greenwood or Daniel James. If those 3 of them are in sync and on song, the kind of pace that they were hitting us with, if it wasn't for Ederson, we would have lost the game. I mean, we would have been 4-0 up in the first half itself. Ederson made 3 good saves and 1 shot hit the post. And their midfield obviously is quality. And another low-key attribute of theirs is their defense. If you look at their defense, it's embarrassing to see. But Man United have actually conceded. I don't know about the last 2 games, but during the restart, when I looked at the table, United had conceded like 2 goals less than City. So if you look at the gap in position as to where City is, where United is, and to see that United have conceded 2 goals less than us, like that's shocking. Like that just goes to show how bad our defense has been and how good United's defense has been. Like Maguire and Wan Bissaka have definitely brought some stability. They are both old school hard tacklers, and they've brought some stability to their defense. So it's getting a bit scary. They're probably not at the level City is at and won't be for like quite a while, but it's getting scary. Their attack is fast and quick. Their midfield is creative and good. Their defense is solid, and De Gea, like at his best, he is one of the best keepers in the world. So, and somehow he always turns up against City. So I hate that a lot. Like they'll play some small teams, he'll have some big screw ups, and then he'll play against City and he'll be making top corner saves and everything. So yeah, if the team is in form, then it's quite scary what can happen. But then the question keeps going: how much are they going to keep spending until they can actually win that title?
I mean, again,
Yeah.
also the
Wait,
possibility.
wait.
Okay, yeah,
I just want to add to what he said. So I completely agree with what he said initially as to when you part company with Sir Alex Ferguson, you need to get a similar stature. But what I have also what I've seen over these past years is that we have got Louis Van Gaal, we have got Jose Mourinho, who are, if not up to his level, they are probably just tad bit down. But
Yeah.
then again, they don't fit what United are. Probably they have their own style of playing. They have their own kind of players they want. So probably that's another place where what we have got wrong. And probably we just needed someone like what Oli has come and done, who represents what United is, who represents what United actually needs to win a title, fast, quick counter-attack
Yeah,
transition.
like a ex-player would definitely
Like
do that,
exactly.
or even someone like Mourinho and Van Gaal, but like prepone them. Like if they had to come in exactly when Ferguson left, then that would have been good because it's someone of such a big stature, and then someone like
Yeah.
Mourinho, who's a
Yeah.
Champions League winner, treble winner, serial trophy winner, coming in at that time. Like maybe Mourinho was the right person for the job, but it's just a case of right person, wrong time. Maybe if you had to come in
Yeah.
just after Ferguson, like the results could have been something different.
But then that's what United have not. What I feel is Mourinho is just kind of like a quick fix manager. He doesn't stay at a club for more than 2 years, 3 years. He has a
Yeah.
reputation of being sacked every probably the third year of his management. So I feel in that way also he wasn't ideal for United. It was probably the end of his career. So I mean the managerial appointments have been kind of a question mark. But I feel that a club like United, who are known for their longevity in trusting a manager and a player who actually a manager who actually understands what United represent and the DNA of the football is probably what we needed right now. And that's why I personally feel that Oli is the correct man for the job right now. I mean, even if I'm proved wrong, I will probably abide by my statement because he has brought a lot of comparisons, a lot of likeliness to what we were in our trophy winning years. So hopefully we can build on from this optimism and not get too far ahead of what we are and just take every game as it comes.
No, at the end of the day, you're right about that. It's just that teams like United and Liverpool depend a lot on their DNA, their style of football, what a
Exactly.
giant they were in the past, and they try to use that in the football. Whereas teams like Chelsea and City are more about building a new identity and revolutionizing
Yeah.
football and creating a new kind of standard. So not just for United, but even for Liverpool, I think that's why Klopp is such a good fit for Liverpool because
Exactly.
he wants to play good attacking football. He wants to play passionate football. They call it heavy metal football, and that's the right guy for the job to play the kind of the brand of football that Liverpool has been playing for decades. Like even in the Champions League finals that they've played in the 80s, 90s, that's the kind of football. And same for United. I think even though people look at Ole as some sort of really soft, kind of guy, he knows what it takes. He's a treble winner. He knows what it takes to. He knows the DNA of the club, and like you need someone like that to get that into the players. It's not just about playing
Exactly.
football. You need to know who you're playing football for.
Okay.
So, Conrad, my question is, we were talking about legends coming back and managing their old clubs. Do you think Steven Gerrard's going to be Jurgen Klopp's successor at Anfield?
There's a lot of talk around it happening about Gerrard coming in and stuff when Klopp is finally done with Liverpool. But I don't think that is what FSG would like to undertake because they have a vision where they want to see the club really do well. And I don't know if Steven Gerrard coming in right now with just a few years of management under his belt will will be able to keep the club at the same level. And I'm pretty sure FSG don't want to spoil his reputation at Liverpool as well. So I think it'll take some time for Gerrard to come back over here.
So, you think Liverpool will take a more conservative
I'm pretty
approach?
sure. I'm pretty sure he'll have some positions at the youth squads and the under 23s and stuff. But senior team, I think there'll be some time for Steven Gerrard to take over that.
Okay, guys, thanks for watching our podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our video. Also, massive thank you to Akio and Conrad for joining us today on today's podcast. We link their IG down below. Go follow them. Thanks and peace.
Yeah, they're quite huge in Goa, so give them a follow.
Yeah, they're quite huge in Goa as well. Give them a follow. Bye, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.
See you.
Cheers.
Bye bye. Cheers.